great.
Okay, well, I think we'll get going. Okay, I think we'll get going. Welcome everybody to the Wood Park Community Association Annual General Meeting. And for the people of Wood Park, this is a big week for elections. We had that little election last night, and then tonight we have the big election. Just kidding. Anyhow, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, whether they're on Zoom. We have a couple people on Zoom, although you can't see them because we're going to look at slides. Maybe we'll be able to see them later on. And for everyone coming in person, particularly my fan club from Wentworth Avenue, the street that I live on, and I can always count on come out to these meetings to make sure that we have quorum. Yeah, and my husband too. So big team from Wentworth Avenue here. And I know some of you would have stayed up late last night, like myself. Like I think at 12:30, I kind of quit when they were starting to talk about ordering food at the CBC desk. But anyhow, others of you will be wanting to watch the hockey game. So really appreciate that some of the hockey fans are here tonight. And we were going to try to have it on the corner of the screen, but technology has ruled against that. But David will be watching, and I know Andrew's watching. So if there are any important scores, like, speak up, okay? So we should drag it.
My phone is being the microphone, so I can't watch the game. So when
We're counting on you.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to start by acknowledging that the Wood Park community is located on the traditional unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, and we honor the people of this nation and their valuable past and present contributions to this land. I would also like to thank the the Pinecrest Queensway Community Health Center for letting us hold our meeting in this wonderful space. Who knew this was here? The Pinecrest Queensway Community Health Center is a not-for-profit organization that has about 60 programs focusing on the full range of determinants of health, focus in particular on vulnerable populations. So some people that have difficulty getting a doctor, that's everybody these days, but some populations have even greater problems, children, older people, and many of the newcomers to Ottawa. Oh, Zara. Thank you for coming. We're just getting going. And they have like over 300 staff. This is their main building, but they have community houses, and they have some other buildings, including that employment center that's just above the Rexall. So they have primary care, the employment services. They have pathways programs to get kids into post-secondary education, the hearing programs for young children, and the whole range of things. Anyhow, I encourage you to just look them up on the website and get informed about the wonderful things that happen here. And because we're getting this space for free tonight, we're going to give a bit of a donation to the nonprofit to help them with their work. So before we get going, I'm going to ask each of the directors to get up and introduce themselves, and if you're comfortable, to say what street you're on so that people know that they can kind of come and find you, or might see you walking down their street sometime this summer. So I'll start with Sue. I'm Sue Milburn Hopwood. I'm the president of the Wood Park Community Association, and I live on Wentworth. Dave?
I'm David Levesque. I live on Ancaster. I'm the vice president and probably the longest serving member of the board.
Jim?
I live on Midway Avenue. I'm a tenant in the Town Citizens Auto Corporation, little triangle Midway, Hartley, and Richmond Road. Pretty happy to be in this community.
I'm Stephanie Holgren. I live in Woodland, and I have 2 little kids. So if anyone has any art-related concerns or children-related concerns, I'm your person.
And we do have some parents with, and maybe you guys definitely need to get to know each other. Mara, do you want to stand up?
Girl. And I live on just off Edge Road on a tiny road called Mayfair or Mayflower Drive. Doesn't that sound neat?
Jane?
All 170 of them?
Yeah.
Well, let's go for Jennifer. One of the Jennifers. And she's the treasurer. Very important. And then just for confusion, we have another Jennifer.
I am in charge of the sustainability committee. So I'm using things to keeping Wood Park more sustainable and stuff. And I was in Wood Park since 2019, and I've been on the board since then. All of it.
And Jody in the corner.
I'm the secretary for the Wood Park Community Association. I've been part of the association since fall, and I moved to Wood Park just under 2 years ago, so I'm relatively new to the community. I live on Allison Avenue, and I have a black dog that's often on my porch, which if you ever walk down Allison, you'll see her on her very comfy memory foam bed. And she's very, she's very friendly.
Yes, there's a lot of dogs in Wood Park. In fact, my husband wants to rename it Dog Park, not Wood Park. We don't have any dog parks, but you know, I think it would be an appropriate name. And lastly, Michael. Okay. Okay, did I miss anyone from the board? No.
Well,
Okay,
Stephen Graham, or not Stephen Graham, Stephen
McGill.
McGill.
Who's not here tonight. And I just want to introduce at the back, we have two representatives from the Wood Park Common Ground Community Garden. Is that the full right name? Yes, okay. So we have Amber and we have Celeste, and they're both on the coordinating committee for the garden. And sometimes there's a bit of confusion. The garden is a separate entity from the association, but we like to talk to each other. And we know that the garden is a huge part. There's a number of members of the garden sitting here today. Anyhow, we invited them to come and just tell people about the garden. So thank you for coming tonight. And growing season is just, well, it's starting already, but I think we're not actually allowed to do anything under the NCC's permit until the 1st of May, something like that. Yeah. Anyhow, and the garden is a place where people can come and enjoy. All people at Wood Park. We just ask that dogs be on leashes and that any of the produce that's there stays with the owners. And much of the produce there is actually produced for the food bank, and so we want to make sure it's going to the right places. Anything else you want to say? I'm telling you, I'm doing your spiel without even giving you a heads up.
I would just add that we do have $25 to garden the community spots. We used to go to and there are other spots.
Great, and there's actually a whole bunch of people, 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 members of the garden here. So like it's a fun thing to do, and the soil is actually quite good over there, and they get compost regularly, and my dogs don't run over my plot like they do in the backyard. So anyhow, let's get on with your agenda because we have lots to do and there's a hockey game happening tonight. So let's start off by, is everyone okay with this agenda? Should we do some Robert's rules and can someone,
I move that we approve the agenda.
all in favor? Second.
Okay.
All in
Agenda
favor?
approved.
Okay. Approval of the minutes of last year. There was a short set of minutes that just described what happened and who was there and who was elected. Any concerns with the minutes?
Our motion, move that we approve the minutes. Okay,
Oh,
done.
okay. Okay, so we'll move on now to the year in review. So I have some slides just to kind of keep me on topic here, which sometimes I can go off. And I'm sure I'll get the hook from David for when I go on too long. But anyhow, Wood Park Community Association is a not-for-profit organization, and we are actually registered with the province of Ontario. And we approved our new bylaws last year at this annual meeting. We seek to represent the residents and the members of Wood Park. And we have a 15-member board of directors that meets monthly, last Tuesday of every month. And we have an annual work plan that we use to guide the activities. We actually have some openings on the board of directors. So if anyone wants to volunteer either tonight or wants to give us a call later on, there's a couple spots available. We have 4 committees: Infrastructure and Development Committee, an Outreach and Events Committee, the Party Committee, Sustainability, and Internal Services. And we also are part of the Federation of Citizens Associations of Ontario, which is of Ottawa, which is like mine, community associations where there are monthly meetings and we exchange important information on some of the big things that are happening in the city. So that's the association. Infrastructure and development, that's the one committee that's been very active over the last year, and we've done a number of activities. Probably most importantly, we engaged and represented the community on the very substantial issues arising from the Lincoln Field secondary plan, and there was a lot of correspondence asking residents to write in with their comments on the plan, and we got lots and lots of people engaged on that. Clearly some great things are going to come out of that plan, but lots of, I think, overdevelopment. And we did make the case for some of the current concerns, particularly the height of the buildings along Edgeworth Avenue and along Carling. City had already made up its mind and approved the plan, or they approved the plan related to the area around Metro. And when this next zoning bylaw is changed, they will finish the approval. So we have another kick at the can, but I think it's a done deal. Anyhow, thanks everyone for being engaged on that. I think now we're going to have to focus our efforts on managing whatever kind of impacts come out of that plan. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be new services, new restaurants, new amenities in the area as a result of it. It's just, I think the scale is a bit much. And some of the amenities like sidewalks and parks and things like that have not yet been well thought through. We advocated for improvements to the detour last summer along Byron, and that'll probably be an active file this summer as well. We tracked and provided information about the new zoning bylaw, the first set of comments. They're now into the second set of comment period, and we'll continue to track that. Like all of the city, there will be impacts and much more intensification in our neighborhood, and ours in particular because of its proximity to the LRT. So there's already a house on Hartley going up without any changes to the bylaw that can have 6 units on a single lot with no parking, and that's in the current law. Eventually, I think, and unless there's been changes in the new version, could be 12 units on a single lot in Wood Park with no parking. So this is going to change, but I am encouraged by the there are some nice new houses being built that are brand new. There's lots of there's some renewal that really needs to happen, and it needs to allow for more families to live in Wood Park. It's just a matter of kind of getting it right and having the right kind of amenities like sidewalks and parks and all of that kind of thing. Anyhow, that's something that people should be kind of aware of. We organized an information session on the revitalization of the Byron linear path and the lawn parquet, and some of the pictures from that event. We had it in the Woodruff School last October. Anyhow, I brought the handouts that they provided there for people to look at. So if you didn't have a look at them, have them look at them on the way out. And we initiated work on parking and traffic and safety, and we'll hear more about that. The one thing that we did, we'll go to the next slide, yes, we did get out of the Lincoln Field secondary plan, or at least I hope we got this out of it, was a commitment to explore the use of the area south of the garden to be some kind of active or passive recreation space that could be accessible to the community after the completion of the LRT. It's NCC land. Their current policy is just to leave it wild, but it gets filled with invasive species and birds and ticks, and really it's unusable. And we would like the city to work with the NCC to find something that's more usable for what will be very valuable green space once the development happens. So nothing has happened on that yet, and I'm kind of disappointed that we haven't been met yet. I understand the NCC may be a bit difficult to work with, but we will be pressing for that in the coming year. Okay, moving on to outreach and events. We reestablished the mural at Ancaster and Flower, and it looks lovely, or it did look lovely. It's gone through its winter, and we're going to repaint it soon in June so that we can actually enjoy it all summer long. We organized the community garage sale, another great movie night in the park. I don't know how we get the weather forecast right every night. We organized the gift giving for the seniors and long-term care residents nearby. And we advocated for changes to the proposal from the Ottawa Carleton District School Board's boundary changes for Woodruff School. And I think as a result of the pressure of many parents and our own letter, but there was a lot of work behind that. They actually have changed their proposal. I don't think they've passed it yet, but I think that they heard loud and clear that the proposal to no longer allow our youngest kids to go to Woodruff School has been overturned. Sustainability, Jennifer mentioned we've reestablished the committee. We continue to do some work on tree planting. If you go to our website and you're interested in planting a tree or getting the city to plant a tree, Barb Hemmings, who's sitting in the turquoise shirt there in the third row there, went through, she's a arborist, and she went through the trees that she thought would be good for our neighborhood that would be resilient for climate change. They are on our website. So if you're thinking about a tree, consult that. But we also promoted the city's planning, and they have a new tree planting where they could actually give you a tree to plant yourself on the private part of your land. So want more trees in Wood Park. We aim to get 100. I think we're probably somewhere around 30 at this point, but more trees. We're going to have some work on some information sessions on recycling and composting at the community garage sale. Some booths somewhere we'll set up in the community. And we're looking for other ideas for that committee. Internal services, this is really just how we spend our money and the administrative things that need to happen to keep the Wood Park Community Association going. It's largely David, but Jennifer too, and the treasurer, kind of working together just to make sure that the engine works. So we switched over to now having a purely electronic newsletter, and that saved us probably $700 or $800 each year by going electronic. Anyone that wants it printed, I hand deliver them. I did that yesterday, walking around the neighborhood, and there's like about 10 people that want that, but we've gone electronic, and that's saving us lots of money and saving some paper. We had great success in fundraising. We were able, as a result of some of the fundraising, we were able to buy new boards, the new boards that are not as heavy to put up to advertise our events, and they've got a little bit of a protection from the elements. We continue to work on our website, and if you haven't looked at our website, I consult it regularly. I'm sure that the counts that you get are mainly Sioux, but there's lots of good information on there, so easy to remember, woodpark.ca. And then the last thing is we've been having to pay for insurance for any of the events that we have in the park. Sometimes the council will pay for it, but we have to go through and get insurance, and it's a complicated process, and it takes money out of our association's meager budget. And anyhow, the city is offering a program for community associations, and we will hear soon whether we qualify. And I'm pretty sure we're going to qualify. anyhow, that's sort of what we've done in a nutshell, and we can certainly take any questions if, because I've gone through it fairly quickly. But want to talk a little bit about what's coming and want to get your input later on in the meeting. So what's coming externally for the next few years, but we'll focus on next year right now. The new zoning bylaws, I believe, will be passed this year, or if not, early the year after that. And those are going to make substantial changes to all of Ottawa, but particularly the inner urban core like ours. Stage 2 is nearing completion. It won't yet be operating, but you're already starting to see some of those trailers move out and less construction, and it's pretty exciting to go and walk along the line, or not in the line, but beside it, and see the things going up to hold the wires. And so we're getting to the end of that, and that's been a long, hard path. We're still going to be having probably a very difficult summer for the people that live close to Richmond Road, and everyone that needs to use that bypass. It's got to be there in order to get the infrastructure in underneath Richmond Road, but that will be an issue. And I think the association would like to hear about concerns people have as they move into the next phase. And you can talk to the councillor about that if you have questions. And I think we will continue to have renewal of the housing in Wood Park, and clearly there's lots of houses that are right at the end of their lifetime and need to be rebuilt, and there are opportunities to make more dense housing, but it does mean that sometimes our roads get clogged by all of the construction trucks that come by, and so we just have to be patient, and we need to think about, do we need to do any changes to parking so that we don't have those clogging areas, particularly lawn. And that house is now done, but that's such a major route through our neighborhood that, and Edgeworth too, with the construction, has been a bit problematic. People having to wait sometimes to get through. So that's kind of the external influences. I guess we will set at our next meeting, or the next couple of meetings, what we think the priorities are for next year for the association, and we'd like to hear from you later on tonight. But what we're already thinking about is preparing for the opening of the LRT and the intensification, and we are quite worried about cars coming down from places like Canada or anywhere where they're not near an LRT station, parking for the day, and people hopping on the LRT and going downtown or someplace else on the LRT. And will we be able to park in our streets and use our streets? So I think we need to think about that. We'll continue to advocate for more green space and the fixing up of the existing green space that kind of got demoed by the LRT construction. A project that's been near and dear to my heart that hasn't yet got off the ground is a welcome kit for new people, and I'm going to be looking for street captains. So there'll be a call for people to volunteer, because when you walk down the street and you go, oh, that house is for sale, and you think, oh, those new people have moved in. I'd love a volunteer to go in and say, here's some information about Wood Park, and please join the community association. So we'll be looking for that. And then we have a whole range of events coming up. Starting with park cleanup on the 3rd of May. And I know that Jim and Larry and Stephanie and myself will be there, and other people. Bring a rake, bring gloves, and come and help clean up the park. We're also going to see if we can organize something there to deal with some of the toys in there. There's probably too many, and some of them are kind of broken, and maybe a bit better management of toys. So some of the parents may want to put their say in there, and Stephanie's going to organize all of that. And later on in the meeting, we want to hear from you what you think we should be doing. Getting to the end here, I want to thank all of our volunteers and our sponsors. So we had a whole bunch of people sponsored the various events, from Loblaws, the local dentist, Diamond Storage, real estate, free course, a whole range of folks. Most of those are small businesses, people that live in the community. And we also had a lot of volunteers, and you might even see some people in this room that are in these pictures. I see Michael sitting somewhere is at the end, and Larry's over there. So anyhow, thanks to all of the volunteers. And we can't do these events without volunteers. And Mara will be reaching out soon to say, we need some help with the painting. And we will need help with kids to help with the painting too. So and that's a really fun day. And then the last thing is donations. And we don't get money from any place else other than by donations. And sometimes the council will give us a donation to do a particular event. We had all those generous people that provided for specific events, but Tom Marcantonio, who's not here tonight, he lives also on Wentworth Avenue. He's a real gardener and he raises plants and he sells his plants and he always gives us half of the proceeds for that. So just want to acknowledge him tonight. But everybody else can make a small contribution too. And so we accept e-transfers and we also have a paper money box on the way out if you wanted to give a donation, although I don't think many of us carry real money anymore, but we certainly accept e-transfers to the address there. So that is my spiel. We could take a couple of quick questions before we move on to the elections. But any questions or any comments, recognizing that we do have an opportunity for parties later on? Andrew.
A simple thank you to everybody involved. Sometimes thankless work, but you do great work. Excellent to be able to reach out to the board. Meaningful.
Great, thank you, Andrew. And Andrew is a regular inputter on issues, and we need that input on issues. Anything else anyone wants to say? Any questions? We did a lot. Okay, well then let's move on to the next agenda item. And Larry, a past president of the Wood Park Community Association and past chair of the events committee, but is no longer part of the board. So he's free to run the elections to ensure that there's no stuffing of ballot boxes or any undue behavior. Over to you, Larry.
Yeah, I'm the COVID president. I was president during COVID and that kind of thing. So still recovering. So just I want to know how many people we have on the Zoom right now.
We have Ron Strickmar,
Yeah.
Mary McCaffrey, Mike Fedek, Ruth Smith, and
Okay.
Jennifer Bollenbach, who is not a member on our list.
Oh, okay. So
Maybe soon.
So we have a volunteer board here, and it consists of up to 15 members. So I just want to let the people know on Zoom that they're invited to consider joining the board as a board member. Just so everyone's clear, we at this meeting we elect our board. But the board then meets afterwards at their meeting and decides who's going to be in the various roles of president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer, and who's going to be on the various 4 committees that they have. So basically, what we're looking for now is we want volunteers. So you don't have to know what role you want to play on the community association at this point. You just need to be willing to step up and volunteer to be on the board. So as Sue has indicated, we have 10 people who have agreed to serve on the board so far. So we're looking for a little bit more new blood, another 5 people maximum. So I just, if people want to stand up and introduce themselves, we have Michael here. He's already, there you are, Michael. And Stephanie Hultgreen, hi Stephanie, and David here, he's going to carry on, and Sue, everybody knows Sue now. Where is she? Oh, there you are. Okay, Sue and Jennifer Plank, okay, and Jody Proctor, and Mar Preston, there you are, and Jim Smedley, there it is, and Jennifer Soloway, yeah, otherwise known as Jennifer number 2. Anyway, Jennifer Soloway and Jane Taylor. Okay, thank you. And so that's 10 people to be on the board. And I just want to call and see if anyone else wants to join this fabulous team. How about on the Zoom call? Do
You
we
can
have it?
raise your hand if you on the Zoom call. And unfortunately, there's no takers.
Yeah. How about in the room here? I've been very convincing, I know. Can somebody step forward and help my ego a bit? No? Come on, guys. So basically, even if you're not on the board, you're invited to participate in those 4 committees. So even if you're not a board member, you can be active on the board. And also you're welcome to attend the monthly meeting, which are held on the last Tuesday of the month. So so the next meeting will be the 27th of May, where they're going to decide who's going to be the big cheese and the little cheese and the medium-sized cheese. So anyways, just one more entreaty to people. Can we have one person stand up?
Let me carry on with that effort, just to say, I did get a call from somebody that is interested, and he and I are going to have a chat, and there is an ability to add new members to the board outside of the annual meeting, so we probably have another person coming, but
Okay.
I certainly don't want to deter anyone that might be interested. But
Okay.
you can go home tonight and wake up tomorrow morning and send this email saying, I want to be on the board. Not too late, never too late.
And I just want to let you know, we don't accept just anybody to be on the board. You have to live in Wood Park and you have to be available to attend our monthly meetings. And you also have to introduce yourself to the community. So, yeah. So just to let you know, we're rigorous requirements for our volunteers. So I would like last call for people to step up. Yeah, where's my gal going once, going twice, okay. Everybody feel uncomfortable now? Okay, can I have a motion to close the nominations then?
To close the nomination.
Okay,
Seconder.
seconder, okay.
2 seconds.
And I'd like a show of hands to elect our fabulous slate of volunteers for another year. Okay, do we have any detractors
We've got,
here?
Hands up online as well.
Okay, we have a, okay. None of them had second thoughts about joining the board. Okay, okay, okay. Yeah. Okay, well, I'd like to, thank the people for stepping forward and tell them they're now elected as official board members of the Community Association. And they're obliged to attend the May 27th meeting and to get their assignments. Okay, so thank you all. And yeah, I guess that's about it. If you want to know who's going to be the big cheese and everything, it'll be posted on the website, woodpark.ca. Okay, so thank you all. Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Larry, for a very great and just to say, if you do want to be on the board, but you don't think you can make every single meeting, you don't have to make every single meeting. We just ask you to tell us that you're not going to be able to. So, it's not quite as strict as Larry laid out.
Yeah.
So, so I don't know if everybody knows Teresa Kavanaugh, our councillor for Bay Ward, has just arrived, and she's going to be speaking in a few minutes. Sometimes she does the elections, but we didn't quite know when she was going to come. So Larry did a great pitch to get new. So we're going to have one more presentation, and then okay. Okay, actually, no, we're gonna have 2 more things. Jennifer's gonna come up and do the financial statement, because we actually gained money this year, which is a good thing. So you should come out, and then we're gonna move into the parking issue, and then we're going to invite Councillor Kavanaugh to come and make some remarks. there is coffee, there's food. If you didn't get dinner, there's, you know, it's kind of sweet like, but, and feel free to come and sit where you feel comfortable to sit. Yeah, there's homemaking. Michael made lovely brownies there.
They're very good.
Yeah.
Take 2 seconds.
Well, she stole my thunder on the donations, but yes, there is a box here if anybody's got cash that they want to donate. Otherwise, an e-transfer is wonderful, and we're not looking for a lot of money, but if every house gave like $20, honestly, we'd be very, very happy.
We'd have to change our reporting.
You would have to pay for it. But just to say, we started off the year with, as you can see, about 1,500. We've closed off with about 2,500. So it's actually really nice to come ahead. And we had a wonderful time with the mural painting and movie nights, which are a little more expensive events, but they bring out the community and everybody seems to enjoy them immensely. Yeah, that's about it. Truthfully, if the insurance thing gets sorted out, we're going to be in really nice shape. So far, it's been great. And the online newsletter has been a terrific saver of both trees and money. So again, closing the balance at the end of this fiscal year at 2548. Any questions? Wonderful.
Is that a typical balance?
No, it's mostly run just under 2,000 or around 1,500. So it's nice to come a little bit ahead this year. Great.
And we kind of like have some money in case there's just, I don't know, a legal issue or something where we really feel we need to hire some.
And I mean, and not to harp on, I mean, everybody knows this, but costs really have gone up. And the movie night was a lot more expensive last year than anticipated. But we had about 200 people in the park and everyone seemed to enjoy it, which was so lovely. The mural has become slightly more expensive as well. But again, it's a wonderful way to bring the community out together and it looks so nice. So, yeah.
So maybe we should just check in on the hockey score or any news?
Still no score.
Okay, so you're missing nothing, okay? Okay, and the folks online, does anyone have any questions or want to make any comments at this stage?
Ron,
Ron, go ahead.
guess we're not hearing you. Just one moment. Go ahead, Ron. Sorry, Ron, could you type your question into the chat? We don't have audio coming through. This is really, really weird. Sorry, I guess Ron's not. There's always some technical issue.
Dave does an amazing job on all these technical issues, but we don't always get it all right. Anyhow, maybe Ron will get back to us with a written question. We need to go on to the next item and then we'll check in with Ron after. So Ron, if you're able to hear this, if you can type in the chat your question, then we can try to answer it. Okay, so next we're going to move on to the next item, which is the Wood Park parking concerns, and we just started to do some thinking about it. It's going to be a bit of a two-way presentation. I think there's two people who are involved in putting it together. So Dave and Steve Hopwood, who's my husband, who got voluntold to help. No, he didn't, but he actively follows the parking issues in our neighborhood. Anyhow, this is kind of an item for discussion to start the discussion.
There are current parking issues in Wood Park. We all know that. They are going to get worse when stage 2 LRT opens. I expect that there are going to be commuters coming into our neighborhood and wanting to park on our streets, jump on the LRT and go downtown. As a heading off of the issues, we put together a parking, safety, and traffic team that we were looking at our various issues that we have in the community. We started with parking. Do you know that we have 8 different types of parking restrictions in Wood Park? There is the purple ones, which is the majority, is the default parking that the City of Ottawa puts in place. And that's, limited time between certain hours. It'll be coming up on the slide explaining that as well.
And no signs, right?
No signs.
No signs.
No parking signs, no restricted parking signs. There is permit-only parking. I didn't know we had permit-only parking. And right now, Byron, well, it's definitely a no parking zone. But when it was just Byron, not Byron/Richmond, it had permit parking. Now, you can, as a resident, go and get guest parking permits for your guests for street parking. We have some no winter parking, primarily along Lawn, and I can't remember the name of that street. There's one street, North-South Street, that is between Woodland and New Orchard. And that one is also no winter parking. And then we have various time limited, some 8 to 4, some 2 hours during 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., some no parking between 1 a.m. and 9 a.m. And then there's day and time limited, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Little spot on Ancaster, and I think that's specifically due to the Golden Palace egg roll sale. Because that's where people would always park. I live on Ancaster, and during the egg roll, they just park there anyways. So we have some issues that we need to have resolved. The default parking is in excess of 3 hours, Monday to Friday, between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., in excess of 6 hours on the weekends, between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., and during snow removal and street sweeping.
That's the default,
Yeah. Excuse me, I have asthma, so that's my asthma cough. It's not anything like COVID. We are concerned that there's just a lot of confusion out there. The lack of knowledge around the parking with no signage, it adds to the confusion. Our streets are narrow without sidewalks, and it poses risks, but also when there is parking, it slows the traffic down, which is also an issue, the speeding. There is no enforcement. I have not seen a ticket on a car in Wood Park since 2008 when I moved here. So we can't rely on ticketing. Winter conditions also magnify this, and there's a lack of enforcement of all of the regulations. When stage 2 opens, we're expecting a lot more of this commuter traffic. Plus, intensification is already happening in our neighborhood. The roads are going to get more clogged. There are now houses being built without parking. The new bylaws will continue to increase that. And so we need to do something about this. We need to be proactive. So we are looking at possible solutions to reduce the different parking restrictions. Personally, I would like to see one set of restrictions for the entire of Wood Park, but it may not make sense, and there may be some businesses that don't like that. So we need to have some input from you. Some of the things that we can see potentially are street parking permits. I would like to see what other neighborhoods in stage 1 LRT with parking did with their restrictions around the stations. I'm going to go out and do some touring to see what the restrictions are around those stations. There is some possibility of no parking in select areas to enhance the pedestrian and cycling safety. Lawn is a good candidate for that because there's a lot of cyclists and pedestrians, especially school children, going back and forth on Lawn. And of course, we need to see some enforcement. So some of the things that we want to ask you. Are there any changes that we should be asking for immediately? Because we know this is going to be a long-term change, but we can ask for things now. Do we want to be proactive or wait till the LRT opens? I think we should be proactive. But what do you think? Do we want to take a Woodmark Park-wide approach, which is my preference, or let each street make its own decisions, but be aware that, solving problems on one street might create problems in the next street over?
Actually, already seen that on, Wentworth, so Edgeworth, near the Mayfair, private.
Mayflower.
They had to remove parking so that the garbage truck could go in and get their dumpster, and they couldn't get out, so they actually had to, and we supported them, having no parking so that the garbage truck could go in and out. But all of a sudden, all those cars that were parking there are now parking on the next street over, on Wentworth. And so that's just an illustration of when you do one thing, then you have a spill-off effect on the next street, which is probably a good reason to think about this from a holistic perspective.
So we're going to be opening the floor to ideas shortly, but if you also want to contribute anonymously, send to woodpark@woodpark.ca.
That's that.
And that is, excuse me, that's it.
So my role as chair of the traffic parking safety committee is to try to gather all the information we can. We're talking about parking here specifically, and create with subcommittee that we have path forward to be proactive on issues. I just did today. I did a mental calculation in my head about. We say that parking will be an issue when the LRT opens. So I went to my head. And I said, well, okay, so Moody Drive is the furthest one out. Okay, so that's, I don't know. There's nothing out there. I don't know what they're going to do in terms of parking. I'm thinking about Canada commuters coming in. But if you move down to Queensview and Pinecrest, there's no parking readily available around there. The first area, or Lincoln Fields, the first area that you hit is Wood Park for streets ready available for parking, or potentially for parking to get on the LRT to go downtown. So I just did that thought process. So it's definitely going to be an issue, I believe. And I think if we have any comments, Bruce?
Well, thank you for the presentation. I've lived in the neighborhood for 30 years. I had no idea about the parking restrictions. So signage just seems like a no-brainer. Like this is all new to me. And I have a dog. I've been walking these streets for 30 years. I had no idea there were 3-hour restrictions on parking.
Well, there's actually quite a few parking signs. That's how I did that map. Is I actually used Google and drove down the streets on Google and looked at all the signs.
But for the ones where there are no signs that are default,
Yeah.
which really means there are restrictions, no one knows about it.
Nobody
Yeah.
knows about that.
It's not a parking.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's citywide. You're right. So it's an issue in that people don't recognize that you can't park their vehicles there for days on end. And
And it's kind of like on our street.
On our
okay,
street.
People parking for days on end.
yeah, we have, I mean, I've seen a couple of vehicles parked there. And because I walk the dog a lot, I've actually kind of followed these people to see where they're going. Not that I want to spy on you. But one is, goes one way to the social housing. Actually, another person lives in, what's the name of the address? It's, that Richmond Road apartment building, 495 or?
Anyhow.
Anyways, so I actually followed this person twice to make sure. Parks his vehicle on Wentworth, walks across Richmond Road and disappears into that apartment building. I don't know why, but. So, and I'm not trying to name names. I'm just saying that these people probably don't know that there's some restrictions on parking there. We had an incident over the winter. Somebody parked in front of our house and left the vehicle there for days and days, and the snowbanks built up around it. So when he finally came and dug it all out and moved his car, the next, not very long after, the snowplow came along and dumped all the snow in my driveway. I had a hell of a time with it. Anyways, so yes.
Yes,
If there's any plan for like a parking ride at the two fields? No.
it would make sense.
Like the closest one would be probably like Eagleson from Canada. Like where that whole big parking lot where Metro is and behind the quickie. Yeah, that's private property too. Oh, it's private.
So what about Moody Drive though? I don't know much about that particular last LRT station.
So there will be buses that will pick up people from much like Tunney's. So I can't see that much now, but that's the plan. So it will be, and like Tunney's, even though Tunney's has parking there, there's no public parking for, the parking, the way parking works is you don't get a ticket unless there's a complaint. Because they don't go around marking cars for 3 hours, et cetera, on quiet residential streets if there's no issues. They prioritize safety issues, like if it's blocking the driveway, that's absolutely has to be ticketed or towed. But if somebody's just parking and they're over 3 hours, it needs to be reported. And you were saying you've never seen a car ticketed. It probably because no one called. I've been part of where we had concerns at a particular spot where parking was a problem, where we did blitzes for a short period of time to, where you went daily for a week just to get the message through. And this was on a safety issue involving kids at school.
Yeah.
So, generally
I've
speaking,
called, I've actually used the email that's started the website 311. And you're right, you don't get action unless you give them 311 the idea that there's a problem. The problem is I'm not around all the time, so I don't know if there's tickets being issued or not, or what I'm saying. The cars come and go sometimes. There's that aspect to it as well.
yep, and is that a problem? Is that causing anyone harm? You have to ask yourself, is it worth,
Yeah.
concern? When I go to the Glebe and Ottawa South, they have parking trucks, Lansdowne. Everyone, parks on their side streets and they're there for a short while and then they're gone. There's lots of communities across the city. Same rules apply. The default is 3 hours during the daytime and longer on the weekends, 6 hours.
Yeah.
So, if you change your parking, you're changing it for everyone. You're not changing it for people you don't want, and people you do want. You can't do that. It's the same because it's not parking a person who lives at that house. It's a street parking spot, and that's how it works.
Unless it's permanent parking, or is that how it works?
Permit. Yeah, I know that if there was some on Byron and it's a leftover, and I asked about that. It was something to do with 1025 from years ago. But generally speaking, permit parking is not given unless you have no parking. And if, like, for example, right downtown, they would have permit parking because their houses were not built with driveways.
And I think that's what the concern is that there will be no parking. And so this is the getting ready
Yeah.
for.
So, yeah, we talked about this and, could that be considered for the future for neighborhoods? And that's a possibility. In our discussions on zoning bylaws, it came up about having, some sort of a neighborhood parking lot. But nobody claimed who would be responsible for it, whose land it would be on.
Right.
So it seemed like, kind of a
Present some
half-baked
issues.
idea.
Well, I guess, from my perspective, and I've heard this from others, is that the rubber hits the road, so to speak, in the winter, because we're losing already narrow streets, we're losing more.
Mhm.
And people are parking on both sides. I've seen this issue, the garbage truck couldn't get down the street, for example.
Yep.
And so that needs to be addressed.
I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
And you can do winter restriction. In fact, that's what they do in my neighborhood. They got together and they put winter restriction on just one side of the street.
And we have some of that in Wood Park as well.
Yeah. And so, then nobody can park there in the winter. Okay, and just park on one side. So that seems to resolve the winter concern.
So like,
You can work
looking
on-
at options and
Mhm.
seeing what makes sense.
Yeah, but generally, most parking is dealt with street by street. You can work as a community but you need buy-in. You have to make sure you're not surprising anybody. They find out that they can't park in front of their home either. And they didn't know anything about it. So you have to really consult if that's what you want, if you want to go that direction. And generally speaking, you have a petition process per street. And we have done that, before. I think we did it for a long. But, so you get the 2/3 of the, households say, yes, I agree with this restriction, and then you can go ahead.
But there is no point in changing law when there's no enforcement, right? So like to put in new rules in Wood Park for us to not call by law and have tickets issued, there's no point in putting the effort in there. So maybe the effort should be now seeking input on making those calls and getting.
That's exactly what we're doing.
So, but I think like we don't put the effort into changing rules on the streets till we actually can see how it's gonna impact us.
All bylaw. See my office, or send it in email format. Email.
Okay, I think,
One more.
The only thing about having one law for all of the park is though, even though Wood Park isn't very big, there's Wood Park bordering Carlin versus Wood Park bordering Byron. Has different issues, I would say. Like Holden, we seem to have a different parking thing, but I'm thinking that that's probably due to the businesses which are behind us. People before, maybe got this parking restrictions because.
I think that's a really good point. I'm not sure it's a one size fits all. And, we seem to have a lot of congestion on lawn. And maybe lawn might be a street where we don't have any parking, or we have no winter parking throughout, or something like that, and it's a different thing.
Sorry, I'm away from any thought of taking one way.
That's a little more involved.
Yeah.
A lot more involved. They don't do those things lightly, and they don't usually do it with residential streets. It often leads to more.
Yeah.
Teresa, do we know when we're gonna get sidewalks on lawn yet?
No.
Because that's also gonna be a contributing factor.
Yeah,
And,
we're taking input.
it's the start of the conversation, and that, we have some problems now. I think the bigger concern is thinking about the future, where we probably will have problems, and getting our head around that and what the options are.
Teresa, you said that the downtown where there's no parking in some properties, they get issued street parking permits.
Yeah.
We know that on Hartley, there's now a 6 unit going in that has no parking. Are units like that, new ones, gonna be issued street parking permits?
Not automatically, no. They have to ask for it, and that hasn't been tested yet, so I don't know how that would go.
And wouldn't they have to determine that there's no parking? I guess they could keep the existing default regulations, but then that permit allows them to exceed the 3 hours. Is that essentially how it would work?
It would give them the permission to park when they needed to park. Mostly overnight, I would think.
So one unit could fill up the whole street and they get grandfathered in, and everybody else doesn't have access to parking on the street.
Well, it's a count,
Okay.
but it hasn't been tested.
Yeah.
The idea of having, no parking minimums is to, have people go without cars. If
Yeah.
they choose it, they're taking a chance. There is no automatic, you get because, you don't have a parking spot, you get a parking permit for the street. No, this is something that was grandfathered in downtown, and it is not spread, across the city. It is not encouraged. The city is not coming forward with parking permits.
And they're kind of expensive too. Like I used to have one of those in Centertown when my husband would come to me. So he lives in Ottawa too. And it's not like, it's not free, like you have to pay as well.
Yeah.
For the parking permit,
Definitely.
right? So there's kind of like drawbacks to it.
You can get annual, you can get seasonal, you can get gas or a
Yeah.
combination.
The gas one is a good option for if people have issues with whatever.
Anyway, we just wanted to raise this as something that we see coming down the road. Sorry for the pun.
And that revenue from these parking permits, it goes to the general revenue, it doesn't get allocated back to the community.
Generally speaking, parking, revenue is treated very separate.
Yeah.
It does not.
Yeah, I know the restriction on parking metered, that it can only go to provide more parking. It can't go to
Yeah.
providing bike lanes or
Yeah,
anything
believe
useful.
me, we tried to work on that, but it was a provincial
Yeah.
regulation that stopped us. And I think it's not very smart.
So Teresa, if you want to come on up and get on camera, you're next on the agenda.
Doing that, we store update?
Just about to start the second. Some
Okay.
changes.
Okay, this is the microphone because I couldn't get that working. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, there you are on camera. Just
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, we talked a big chunk about what we were talking about the other day with parking. I was just at a meeting last week and I always seem to pick a game night to meet with people. We met with Park Place and I had the Stage 2 team with me. And I apologize, I just couldn't get them this at such short notice, unfortunately. But I learned a lot from the Park Place presentation, which is directly across from you on Richmond Road. And you know that the traffic, pardon? Right beside the Tim Hortons, 1025 Richmond Road. And the big news there is the traffic pattern is going to change. And it's coming May 12th, I believe. So instead of that curve that everyone was complaining about because people got confused or people cheated, it's going to be a T intersection. And it's going to stop right in front of the 1025 Richmond Road. And then as far as that's for people to get into their building. But you're meant to go both ways on Byron. Byron will be two-way. That's the next step. And I know it's going to be a tight squeeze. So it will be widened. That's the first thing. That's so that they can do that major work at New Orchard. The corner of New Orchard and Richmond will be closed off. So they'll no longer be diverting traffic down Ambleside. It's going to be closed off and it will be both directions will go on Byron. So this is till the end of this year. And then when that's all finished, they're going to be finished Richmond Road, complete street. For the most part, their object is to finish by December. And then they'll switch over and they'll start digging up Byron. And Byron will no longer have traffic problems because it will be a big hole. Just like Richmond. I knew you'd be excited. Yeah, you didn't like the traffic? Okay, you can have a hole instead. They're going to do what they did for Richmond because there's main water pipes under Byron just as much as there is on Richmond, and they've worked quite a bit on it. And there's a major trunk right at New Orchard. That's why the next few months it's going to be closed. So, but there is walkability because I asked that. You can still get down to the underpass walking. Okay, and they said you have to walk your bike because it'll be narrow. I'm sure people will try and ride their bikes, but it's going to be narrow, and it will go to the section that you can get down to the underpass into the water. So that's a big one.
And they're going to be building those big towers on Richmond.
Yep.
And that's
True.
going to interfere with the traffic as well.
It's mostly going to have to go on Ambleside because they can't use Richmond. It will be closed off. So they're in conversations. The project manager for the Complete Street is in conversation with the buildings because lo and behold, we're going to be giving them water. So the fact that they're redoing the water main, it's an opportunity to make sure that the supply to those buildings is done at the same time. So it kind of works out that way. And most of the traffic will be using Ambleside certainly while that intersection's closed. So, and we're going to encourage them to continue that rather than having it down Richmond.
Happened on Carling Avenue when they were building. The trucks and everything had to, narrow the direction down to one lane. So that, everything was slowed down. I can't imagine them building a tower the size that they planned without interfering with the street traffic.
Yeah, the first step will be lots of digging. So, that's what they'll be doing, and that's while that intersection is closed, so they'll have to go up and down Ambleside. So, and
Is New Orchard also going to be closed?
yeah, just the north side,
Oh, just the-
not in your community. It's nothing to do with the, yeah, this is just below Richmond Road.
And it starts on May 12th.
Yeah.
I'm moving from Ambleside to Lawn on May 10th, so that's good.
Wow, timing. Yeah, so that's a biggie. And it's all to get that done. It's a very messy, painful project, but it is very necessary. The work of the water mains is absolutely essential. Those pipes are over 70 years old, and they were on their last legs. So this is why this project was rolled into the LRT project. It was part of the construction project. So they, it's overseen by Kev, but it's the city's initiative because it had to be done. So that'll help. We really want this year to be over for that part, for sure. Yeah, and then with Byron torn up, well, you won't have to worry about cars turning up your street because it's going to be all torn up. It's going to be gone, and traffic will be back to Richmond Road. So that'll be next year. So, hi, Andrew.
Thank you for being here and Sarah just for.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's wonderful news. And in Toronto as well. Yeah. Busy days. I was at audit committee today, and we were looking into how what they're using that money for the speed cameras and red light cameras. It was more an accounting problem than any kind of switch and bait or anything. Like, it wasn't anything underhanded. The first coverage of this, of what they were doing, made it appear like they were, the money was being just put into the general revenue, but no money was taken away from road safety, and road safety continued to get money. So that was what the questioning was today, and a member of that committee. So we were satisfied with that. One thing about those cameras and red light cameras and the speed cameras is the revenue goes up and down. Lo and behold, people start obeying, and the income goes down. So you can't count on it. You shouldn't count on it. And the fact that what they are tracking is the safety records, and it's working. It's working that there's less collisions, for example. Collisions, especially with the red light cameras, somebody trying to blast through a red light and someone's starting through the green light. So significantly down, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. That is what it's all about.
What kind of discussions are you having in the city and with councillors following that, I guess, discovery or trend? Is that informing sort of new approaches?
Well, it's all part of making roads safe. And we are looking at the transportation master plan that is coming up. That's a biggie. Where we're putting a strong emphasis on pedestrian and cycle safety and making sure that, you know, everybody can get around, that it's not just about cars. It kind of fits in that we should be looking at making the roads safer so that people do not speed because it's easy to speed. We made roads easy to speed. When they're straight and there's no reason to slow down, Carling's a good example, people speed. And so what do you do? So this is part of it too, and that's more long-term because it's expensive to change the design of the street. Going forward, they're going to do better in designing the new streets, but the you know, we're stuck with temporary traffic calming, speed humps, things like that to slow people down in established neighborhoods. And it's not perfect, but that's, as you know, that's what we have in our toolbox at the moment. So those are some of the things. My other files that I work on is affordable housing. I'm chair of Ottawa Community Housing. Very proud to say that we're continuing to build. One of the biggest projects, if you go down to along Somerset, heading downtown, at 1010 Somerset to be exact, is Gladstone Village. Massive project. It's not just housing, it's building a community. There's going to be a school there. There's going to be green space, and it's, you know, and there's going to be commercial. That's what new neighborhoods have to look like. It was an old Canada Land site, and that was handed over, and that's what we want to do going forward with more of those. They're all over the city. I mean, the pandemic meant more people aren't working in buildings and they started to shrink their workforce. But they just have a lot of real estate and they're handing it over bit by bit. So this is something that we can look at for future affordable housing. And when I say affordable housing, going forward, it's mixed. It's a mixture of, it may have social housing component, a big part, but it also has just you know, fair market value rent for anyone who would like to live there. So this is a model I've seen in other places, and it's working. And that takes away the stigma of having just social housing all bundled together. You need a neighborhood that's more vibrant and mixed.
Are there any active housing co-ops under construction or?
Not that I'm aware of. That's something the federal government will have to reignite. I lived in a housing co-op that was federally built. I'd love to see more of them, and I think that that's possible. So, but it was the federal government that killed a lot of those programs in the 90s, back under Paul Martin. And there is promises after this election. Here we are the day after. The Liberals did promise that they're looking at nonprofit or non-market housing, and that would be one category. So hopefully they'll reignite that along with the other forms. I mean, you have to have a whole bunch of things. Ottawa Community Housing is one type, and there's other forms of non-market housing.
Yeah, so the city has never done any housing co-ops?
No, the city doesn't have the power to. They have not been involved. It's either been provincial or federal. But we got handed over housing by the province when they dumped it on us under Mike Harris. But the way it's worked is, there used to be Ontario housing and Nepean housing and different things. And some of it got bundled together and that's when Ottawa Community Housing was formed. And the way they did it is made it a separate corporation where the city is the only shareholder in the corporation, but it has its own board of directors. I'm the chair of it. So That's how it's run. So I have a separate role to be on that board. And we have other counselors on it as well, but it's also got public members. Yeah. So so lots happening with the transportation master plan. The zoning, we talked about this. Zoning is changing everywhere. The province decreed with their bill 23 that we had to build at least 3 units on each property. The feds upped it to 4. And if we want to get funding, we have to push for 4. So there is going to be more housing on properties. What they didn't do was make the little teeny rules and the zoning bylaws, and that's what we've been left with. So we've already had meetings with drafts of what it looks like, and parking, of course, always comes up. They've talked about front lawn parking and that kind of thing, but overall, they're taking away parking minimums. So what that means, they're not requiring parking because parking is super expensive. It could cost you up to $150,000 a unit just for parking. So they don't want to build it unless they really have to, and they will build it for places that are further out. I've got a project that's 2 6-story buildings on Carling, right out there that used to be Villa Lucia. They're going to have parking, 1 parking spot per unit, no question. They don't think they're set up for anything else. But near a station, where the land costs more, they're going to not have parking.
I just offer this, perhaps it's a completely useless comment, but I was in Nashville recently, reluctantly, I was forced. But I was struck by the fact there's like no parking visible anywhere. There's no real public transit, and they have like the National Predators stadium right downtown. They've done a lot to, like, you can, when you see a parkade, they build them to look like buildings. Like you don't see anything, but I just offer that because like it was striking that here's the city. I don't know what they're doing, but I don't know if it's a model that could be helpful here, but like there seems to be this push-pull in Ottawa where like the government doesn't want cars, but everybody has cars and people want good transit, and we're not quite there yet. So.
Well, the developers want to build things at the least cost as possible, and they actually push to reduce their parking.
Oh, I know they do, yeah.
So it's not, that came first, and then we realized that that's a big part of their costs. And who's going to build those parkades? That's the question I was asking earlier about, somebody's great idea about having a neighborhood parking lot. Whose land is it on? Who's monitoring it? Who you pay? What do you do with that car that never left? So it's somebody's got to manage it. It would probably be for profit and be a business model. If somebody's going to build one, maybe they're going to get a lot of customers, but it's not in the plan because those cars have to go somewhere. That means more traffic on the road, and they got to park somewhere else when they get there. So that's part of it as well.
I'm always at risk of talking too much, but I was very impressed. The one meeting I did attend where we really pushed back on the developers to say like, no, there's got to be a setback. We do not want like a canyon down Carling Avenue, period. Like that's just not on. And I wonder, like, developers, they have a little bit of insight into the world and they do okay, right? So I'm not sure why as a city, we don't sort of push harder on them and say like, yes, we want development and we want you to pay for it too.
Yeah. We're kind of, Yeah. The thing about developers is they're in the driver's seat in terms of they're doing what the province and the federal government and everybody wants, and that is more housing. We want more housing. And they're saying, well, the only way I'm going to do more housing is if I can do the following rules. If you want me to put, more housing near here, then it's going to be so many stories high, and that's the way it is. We tried, the city actually, the project that you're talking about, 1047 Richmond Road, the city challenged and said no to them. We knew that we were going to lose at the Ontario Land Tribunal. So we negotiated before that happened so that nobody paid lower, heavy duty lawyer costs. And we got them down to 2 buildings instead of 3. And we got a setback. And we got affordable units. So we negotiated and it worked out. I know that, some people just don't want that period, but it's happening. And the OLT is going to approve just about everything, unless it's totally unreasonable, but that hasn't happened yet because frankly, concerns about traffic or no parking or whatever, the number one concern is how many units are you building? And because we need them desperately. Hi, Michael.
I've driven in Nashville, it's not pretty. I understood at one time back in the days of Councilor Van Holmes that the only parking lot in the city of Ottawa that made money was the market. The rest of all had to be subsidized. That's still true.
I don't think they're subsidized.
They weren't breaking
We get reports, okay, I'm going by memory, but we get a report from, there's a staff member who looks after the parking that is run by the city. And that includes all revenue. And we're doing pretty good because the truth is it's hard to spend it because we have to spend it on other things related to parking. And the only sneaky thing we can do is do bike parking. And I mean, it's an archaic rule and it should be abolished because parking should be, have a cost to it because you're storing a great big piece of metal and it, diamond storage charges money, so you've got to, anything that takes up space costs. But as far as I know, we're doing okay.
We should be allowing developers to build parking lots in neighborhoods.
If they charged? Well, I've only had one that talked about it and the city was not enthusiastic. That was a while back.
One last question. Is that, I've seen a new bylaw, second version. It says 3 units per building, not 4. Not before the 3, and 3 has gone to 5.
Yeah.
We're not following the problem.
It's the feds that said 4. It's the province said 3. But the feds said 4 if you want to get funding, if you want to get your money for affordable housing, we want you to put in these rules to show that you're doing everything for intensification.
So we're not getting money for federal funding.
Oh, we will. We're going to.
We're doing 3 units in there too. People are asking me about this and I don't know yet.
Well, we're still in the process because it's still a draft. There's still draft bylaws, but generally speaking, yes, we're going that direction. Yeah.
We're in 3, and I think we want 12.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is across the city. Yeah. Yes. But in terms of what we're dealing with when we make our new bylaws, the zonings, it's going to change.
Every part of the city, right? There's changes all across.
Yes.
But our neighborhood is going to be a bit denser than West, there's different places.
You'll be
proximity to LRT and main roads and things like that. So
yeah, you'll be very similar to Westboro. Yeah,
It's the same, like it's, I think all across, but then there are different densities depending on
yeah,
access to roads and.
yeah, like Crystal Beach is an outer urban neighborhood, transect, and you're an inner. So there's a difference there.
What's happening with mature trees then?
With what?
Mature trees on what? They just get.
Oh, we're very careful about trying to preserve as many trees as possible. I pushed hard on the tree bylaw so that when they're looking at building more, they have to show that they're working to save trees that are on lots. So a forester is assigned to the projects when somebody makes an application to build on a lot. Now, I haven't dealt with the new 3-unit thing, but in terms of infill, I have an example in Queensway Terrace North where we fought to keep a huge mature tree. And we were able to do that because before they could even bring in their application, we had a forester say that you had to have these restrictions so that this tree can be saved, rather than doing it backwards. And that's what we had been doing all these years, is they'd come in and then they'd say, oh, sure, we'll save that tree. But there was no proof and there was no forester on the file. Now we do it the other way around.
So we are gonna.
That's part of what we're trying to do with the bylaws, is have a certain amount of green space, like 30%, so that trees can survive. When I go to Montreal, I'm very encouraged because it's very dense there, very urban, and there's trees, big ones. So it can be done. And I think there's good examples out there.
Yeah, this is my concern. I've been here for maybe like 8 years, and the beautiful green space before they start the LRT and metro was gone, just like that. And all what I think about when I hear about all the developers and development, it's like there is wildlife, there is environment, and who cares about it? Like, who is going to stay? What about the wildlife and the environment? So I hope the city will just really pay some more attention to this, because we start to lose the bees, and any creature has something, has a role for the balance of, we don't want it to turn into concrete streets, cars.
I wish I had the illustration of what the Byron Literary Park's going to look like. It's getting replanted. Oh, you got it there? Yeah, there. So trees are being planted with a ratio of 2 to 1 for the ones that were taken out. It's going to be it's going to be landscaped again. So that was the promise. They like the trade-off was that if we didn't want more cars on the road, we want to build a train system. We had to dig that hole. It took out the trees. I felt bad about it as well. But in terms of the next step, the promise was 2 trees for every one that they take out. And eventually they're back to being all treed and landscaped.
So I'm just gonna do a time check. We're gonna go for another 10 minutes. We have to be out of this building before 9 o'clock, otherwise we set off alarms. I know how to unset off the alarm, but I don't wanna be there. So that's making me nervous. So I think at this point, we can ask questions to Teresa, or if you have any comments to the board about things you would like us to prioritize, we can have a bit of mix of that. I see Jody is patient and she's doing all the minutes here and she's trying to get attention to ask questions.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Good to see. So I had a quick question in terms of sort of the urban planning. We're not hearing about like 10 Sunset, and these examples of like mixing, retail and parks and so forth. But does somebody when we're thinking about neighborhoods and we're thinking about increasing the densification, is someone sitting back and thinking about kind of what is the right mix of homes like in terms of, like, most neighborhoods need a certain number of single family homes or semi-detached, like, because people maybe want to have some children and maybe want a backyard and in terms of parking, even like having raised 3 kids, like there is no community in Ottawa that is walkable enough that you don't occasionally need a car to go somewhere with kids, right? So I'm just, does someone kind of think about that in terms of the actual whole community? Like,
how are we gonna make this livable for all types of families? Cause obviously we can't get rid of cars altogether. And we can't just focus so much on, even though I know the problems with as are telling me to, on high rises, like we do need, and they are going up, but is someone kind of thinking about what that should look like?
Yeah, and people like myself, I'm pushing all the time. Going forward, you're not gonna see single family homes being built in a core. You're going to see stacked townhouses. That's something Ottawa Community Housing does very well, by the way. Because we have a lot of large families, we're trying to build more housing for larger families, sometimes up to 6 kids or more. So we need that housing very much. We need green space. I won't say backyards, but we need green space very close and very available to run around and play. I lived in a co-op and my backyard was like this big, but the kids played together in the courtyard, you know, so I can have a sense of what, you know, what could work. It doesn't take up as much space. Yeah, we need family housing, absolutely. It has to be a mix. Developers, that's part of the reason why non-market housing is important, because we can focus on that, because who's has less income? People with kids, because, you know, they have a harder time affording things. The developers tend to make smaller units, the for profit. So we need that mixture, and non-market housing can fill that bill. Either, and you know, whether it be co-op or otherwise.
You mentioned the photo radar enforcement works. Don't need to rehash Ancaster and Speed. But I wonder, is there the possibility of having that blitz or a week where a police officer spends, you know, mornings just ticketing people doing legal turns or driving too quickly?
I'm going to repeat myself, and you've heard this before. You've got to make the calls. I can tell them, but they want to hear from residents. If they have a bunch of calls, and not just you, Andrew, get your neighbors to call too. They pay attention when they get a number of complaints in an area, and they take it seriously. And that's how they prioritize. They tell me this all the time. I've had them at the coffee chats. You've been to some, and that's what they continually tell us.
I've heard you, and I understand very clearly, and I believe you're sincere. Then I will just add that I understand the dilemma that the police and the city and everybody has. You can't service everything all the time, so you need to be report driven. I don't know how many, I've probably filed hundreds of reports over my 10-year time in Wood Park, and my experience with the community police officer was hearing residents say, well, we filed a report and the community officer couldn't find it, or somebody else had said, well, I've been filing reports and nothing's happening. You know, I thought I was hit by a car once, and I filed a report, and then they said, no, you gotta call this other enough. Like, you know, it's hours and hours of reporting, and now you get like the formal follow-up. It's always like temporary numbers all the time. So I'm not, it's from a resident's perspective, it's going into a black hole. And after hundreds of reports over 10 years, I've never actually seen anything change. 311 will respond and do stuff, but police, never, ever.
Well, if you get that, why don't you send it to me and I'll ask them, because if you get no reaction.
Sure.
Okay, but I just, it's just that you're expecting that if the counselor calls them, they'll be there like,
No,
but they keep telling me that they need the volume of calls. So here's something, in that audit meeting, some of that money was allocated to the police, but it went into their general funds. At their meeting the night before, last night, they made a promise that they are earmarking that money strictly for traffic, because that's what it should be. So they should be upping their game on traffic.
I have a request of everybody in the room. Well, everyone in the room is a member of the community association. Are your neighbors. Please take the time to go in. The next time you talk with your neighbors on either side of you, whether you live in an apartment or on a house on the street, ask them if they're a member, because we need to have stronger membership for better representation. With that, I think, thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome, as always.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. Yeah.
Now, we were going to have an open mic night, but we don't have a microphone working properly. Does anybody want to make any comments before we close up the meeting? All right, I move that we close the annual member meeting. And we have a second, so thank you everyone for showing up. Have a great evening and go sit and go. Cheers.
And if anyone needs to use the washroom before they leave, you just go down that door there. There's a couple of washrooms, but then come back in here and we have to be out here by